Hey, it's Mazzy here and welcome back. This is a follow-up to a previous video I did several weeks ago, and this is going to showcase 20 women. Anthologies on compact discs representing 20 women who I absolutely adore. Just to give you a little background on that video, I got a lot of comments. There weren't very many women, if at all, represented in that video, so I thought I should do a dedicated video showcasing these women from my collection. I am not just a vinyl purist, although I went through a 20-year period that I really dived in. As you can see, I immersed myself in compact discs. And the one thing about the CD era that is very unique and very wonderful is the labels would put out outtakes, alternate versions, mono and stereo mixes, a lot of unreleased material, live sets. And that, to me, is the golden part of compact discs. If I want to sit down and really kind of hone in on a record, I'll listen to the vinyl copy of the primary label. But if you want alternate versions or you want expanded catalogs, CDs is a real strong point. And I think there's a place for them. And of course, it's a buyer's market for the most part on compact discs, with some exceptions. Some of these anthologies and limited editions actually go for quite a bit in the compact disc world. So let's just jump right in, and these are not in any particular order, but I thought I would just show some anthologies. I'll talk a little bit about the artist and the collection. First, I'm going to start off with this series, Chronicle series Mercury put out, and this is Dusty Springfield, an amazing blue-eyed soul singer, pop singer from the UK. And this is a 3 CD set that covers pretty much all her hits and singles. Of course, when I was growing up, there were songs like Wishin' and Hopin' that were all over the radio. She did the Dusty in Memphis record, just a great soulful record. What a great, great, great artist she was. And I love when these sets really expanded with books and photographs and liner notes and represented the artist. But Dusty Springfield, to me, is one of the very important people of crossover into blue-eyed soul, R&B, and pop music in the late 60s into the 70s. Such a great collection of music. Dusty Springfield. Another favorite of mine is Laurie Anderson, obviously the avant-garde artist that crossed a little into pop. Obviously, she came out on the scene with an independent single that was picked up by Warner Brothers, Oh Superman, and her records on Warner Brothers are fabulous. She does stuff on Non-Such Now, does some great collaborations with the Kronos Quartet and many more. Performance artist, multi-image artist, effects pedals with a violin. She strung her bow with, actually her bow had recording tape, audio tape, and she had like basically a recording, a playback head on her violin, and so she would do these interesting sound effects with her voice and her instrumentation. She did some collaborations with Peter Gabriel and William Burroughs, and really avant-garde. Obviously, later in life, she was married to Lou Reed, and I wish she had done some really interesting things together. Of course, these all have books and really showcase this great music. Great artist, Laurie Anderson. Gillian Welch. Gillian Welch, the new folk, the new country. Obviously, Gillian Welch and David Rawlings have an amazing series of audiophile style LPs on vinyl. And this is kind of an interesting collection. This is Boots #1, the official revival bootleg that has demos and outtakes of songs from her great series of records that she's released. And this is Acne Records 2016, her own label with David Rawlings, and it's a fabulous, fabulous 2 CD set right there. Okay, Aretha Franklin. I'm showing 2 things. I wasn't going to get into much of the full catalog stuff, but this is a fantastic set. This is Aretha Franklin, Lady Soul, the complete Atlantic records. And obviously, what's great about these series of records, of CDs again, they have every album you'd ever want on Atlantic, basically the entire catalog of Atlantic. Aretha started out, her first records were on Columbia Records, where she was more gospel based. And then of course, they got a hold of her with Atlantic, and it really, it changed everything. One of the Queen of Soul, Lady Soul, Aretha Franklin. This is a great set, but another set I just want to call out. This is wonderful. This comes from the Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace was a double LP set that came out in the 70s, gospel recording in a church, and this is the complete gospel, the complete recordings of Amazing Grace. It has 2 CDs, one of the Thursday night show and one of the Friday night show. So a great overview. If you like her gospel singing, that was the original cover of the LP. And of course, it gets into detail about the recording and the wonderful gospel R&B soul night and record. An amazing record. If you haven't heard it, Aretha Franklin, Amazing Grace. Amongst my all-time favorite singers is Ella Fitzgerald. Now this is a little substantial. I think it's been changed. I think this may be still available, but not with the linen style box. This is, of course, was put out during the heyday of CDs, I believe in the 90s. And what this is the complete Ella Fitzgerald songbook. Ella Fitzgerald made a series of songbooks on Verve Records of all the American songbooks. The Irving Berlin songbook. It's 2 CDs. Rodgers and Hart songbook. And these are a lot of standards that you've heard, everyone from Sinatra to Doris Day to Dean Martin. Everyone recorded so many of these records. Harold Arlen songbook. The Cole Porter songbook, amongst my favorites. I mean, All Through the Night, one of the great American songwriters. Jerome Kern, Joni Mercer. And it has a series of things, the Duke Ellington songbook, a little box within a box. So we got boxes within boxes within boxes. George and Ira Gershwin with this artwork of Bernard Buffett. Incredible records. This has a little mini book in it about the Gershwins, and it just really represents the wonderful period on Verve. One section of her work on Verve. Obviously, she did the live albums and beyond, and you got a beautiful. This talks about all the sessions and details of the recordings for Verve. Ella Fitzgerald, among my very, very favorite female vocalists. Now, this is something special too. This is Ella Fitzgerald, 12 Nights in Hollywood. She did a Live in Berlin album and a Live in Hollywood album. The Live in Berlin album she did was my first attraction to Ella Fitzgerald. This is a fabulous set that has 3 CDs and a bonus, Ella Returns to Hollywood, which is done years later. Her live work, in a way, supersedes her studio work. Now, not to take anything away from her wonderful studio work, but when she lets loose with her orchestra, with her jazz ensemble, she's just like nothing else. She soars. She soars with these records, with her scatting and her intense vocalizing. Beautiful recording and a beautiful comp. Beautiful book like Gatefold. Ella in Hollywood. Highly recommended, called 12 Nights in Hollywood, the complete. Now, talk about someone who has an amazing catalog of records. To me, one of the most important women in music ever. And of course, that's infamous Billie Holiday. This is the Verve collection, the way it first came out. This is the complete Billie Holiday on Verve. Now, some of these kind of sets that are so large and so expanded have every outtake, stops and starts. That's not for everybody. Sometimes people just want the basic record and those songs, and I totally get that. And I have those, mostly on vinyl, some on CD, but I love to dive in and just put these on and let them play. And here, sometimes you'll hear the talk back from the producer to the artist in the recording studio. But beautiful booklet and these great old-fashioned style CDs. And this is every take, pretty much, stops and starts of Billie Holiday on Verve. Beautiful book that really kind of showcases the albums, the songs, the recording details. Just an amazing artist, probably one of the most important artists of the 20th century. Definitely recording Billie Holiday. But how she interpreted these songs and worked with these amazing bebop and jazz players, from Lester Young to Ben Webster, just an incredible group of jazz musicians that she worked with during her heyday. Just really wonderful, wonderful music. Since we're kind of in that period, I'm going to go back a little further and talk about showcase Bessie Smith. The grandmother, the godmother, the mother of the blues, the gospel blues, the old kind of timey blues. It's kind of playing in the background if you can kind of hear it. This is the essential Bessie Smith. Columbia Records has done a whole series of the essential series, from pop artists, from Bruce Springsteen to Billy Joel to Simon and Garfunkel to the blues and jazz and Miles Davis. And the Essential series are a great series anthologies that gives you, in a way, the best plus a few deep cuts. And it's a really interesting way to go to get into these artists. And if you want an introduction to any of these artists, this would be a nice way to go. Bessie Smith, the Essential Bessie Smith. Patti Smith. Arista Records went to Columbia, but the Arista stuff is the sweet spot. This is 2 discs, including several different live tracks and alternate versions. Obviously, probably one of the first punk type artists that crossed over and got any major, top 40 success with her cover of Bruce Springsteen's song, her original version of Because the Night. But a great artist I was able to see early on in 1976. I've probably seen her 7 or 8 times over the years. I think one of the most important figures of the last, 50 years, definitely. Patti Smith. And of course, again, what's great about all these sets, you have a great series of books, in this case with photographs by Robert Mapplethorpe. Showcases her live sets, which were very tempestuous in the early day. Everything from punk rock to beat poetry. Just a certain intensity that Patti Smith has that, to me, just transcends everything. She really crosses over. In a way, she's folk punk, but an incredible artist. This is a nice overview. Again, it's the Patti Smith Land, 1975 to 2002, that covers her Arista, or some would say Arista, years before Columbia Records got her. Emmylou Harris. Emmylou Harris, again, a personal favorite of mine, country singer that was introduced to us because of Graham Parsons on GP and Grievous Angel. This is cool because it's called Songbird, and it's Rare Tracks, Forgotten Gems. So it has sort of deep cuts. It has some of the songs that were more popular, but a lot of deep cuts and a lot of duets and songs that were kind of alternate versions and everything. So it's a beautiful, beautiful CD set. One of the great country singers who didn't get stuck in the slick Nashville scene and just did some amazing, amazing music. Now, these are 2 separate CDs, so it's not really, it doesn't really fit in the anthology mode, although there's a Joni Mitchell hits, so it's a hits series. Not that Joni Mitchell had a lot of top hits, but of course you have here Chelsea Morning, Woodstock, The Circle Game, California, Help Me, River, Both Sides Now, the songs that you'd expect to be on a hits. But what's great about this, when the label came to Joni to do a best of, a hits record, which is ironic, she calls it hits, she made them put out a companion piece called Misses. So you got hits and you got misses, like probably personal favorites, songs like Passion Play, When All the Slaves Are Free, A Case of You, The Best of Black Wings, Dog Eat Dog, that's a great song. Okay. Sex Kills, The Arrangement, Hejera. If you're deep entrenched into Joni, you know these songs. But for the novice who only knows this stuff, this is an incredible companion. And these are two great albums to put on and mix up and just put, again, the great thing about a CD, you can put a random, if you have a changer, you can put them on random. And mixing these two together, it's just really a wonderful listen. It's great to hear it like that. So next, Box of Pearls. This is more of a all album box by Janis Joplin. What a lovely package Columbia Sony put out. Very psychedelic because of the San Francisco scene, obviously. But you've got the first Big Brother album that originally came on Mainstream Records and Columbia picked up. You got, obviously, Cheap Thrills. You got Pearl, her posthumous release. That was her biggest selling record, aside from Cheap Thrills. You got Cosmic Blues, her first solo record. And you got Rare Pearls. That's sort of the EP of some live bits, rare bits. Janis Joplin, when she started making money, she bought that Porsche in San Francisco. Great pictures out there. I think Jim Marshall took of her at the Palace of Fine Arts with her Porsche sitting on the hood of her Porsche. But kind of a cool set. I mean, pretty much everything you'd need aside from the live concert that came out, the live set that came out posthumously as well. I mean, there's some outtakes and things, and obviously Monterey, but that's not on here. But this is kind of if you want the basic great stuff of Janis Joplin, Box of Pearls is it. Pearl obviously was her nickname. All right, Roberta Flack. This is one of those all album series, that original album series that Warner puts out, and this is Warner Atlantic, and this basically has her first 5 albums, which to me are the greatest albums she did. I think the only one missing here that I would add on is Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway. But again, LP replica covers, just a great, a great series of albums for a great female artist of the 1970s. One of the great sort of intimate, soulful vocalists, Roberta Flack. Marianne Faithfull. Obviously, some of us of a certain age remember Marianne Faithfull, the young ingenue, the young girlfriend of Mick Jagger, and hooked up with the Stones, and she had that hit with this lovely little voice of As Tears Go By. And then in the late 70s, she comes back with the gravelly voice with a sort of a rhythmic post-punk, proto-punk dance beat in her versions of like John Lennon's Working Class Hero, Broken English, Sister Morphine, a reversion of Sister Morphine, the Stone song that she actually had a songwriting credit with eventually. But this is a great 2 CD comp, and it's called A Perfect Stranger, the Island Anthology. Did a great series of albums on Island Records. Again, those dance kind of rhythmic records that are very kind of modern with a great beat to it. She also did some things like Kurt Weill and almost cabaret style music, and that's on here too, mixed up. Ghost Dance is on here. Very, very wonderful set of songs. To me, a great, great, great artist, and someone who's really important that I don't think gets enough due around here, but I could listen to anything. Her voice is gravelly now. Her last couple of records were produced, which are beautiful, well, and intense and intimate, but really sexy and soulful, and produced by Warren Ellis, who is part of the Bad Seeds with Nick Cave. Nick Cave appears on those 2 records. I highly recommend the last 2, I think it's the last 2 records by Marianne Faithfull. A personal favorite of mine. Okay, Kirsty Mccall. If you don't know the name, those of you who know the Pogues' great Christmas song, New York City, I was going to say New York City Serenade, that's a Springsteen song. That is the Pogues with her singing, Kirsty Mccall. She unfortunately died way too soon in a tragic swimming boating accident when she was on a vacation with her 2 sons. This is a 3-record set. Of course, she covered some Smith songs, and she did a song on here written by, she had actually somewhat of a hit in the UK of New England, which is the Billy Bragg song. But this is really kind of pop, folk, somewhat polished, but really great arrangements, in like the Smiths without Morrissey in a way, some of this stuff here. A Fairy Tale in New York. That's the song I'm thinking of, the Christmas song with the Pogues. And she's a major part of that song. And that, to me, that's one of the premier Christmas songs of the last, 50 years or 25 years. But this is a lovely, lovely set from Croydon to Cuba, an anthology. Beautiful, beautiful story, beautiful set of songs. Unfortunately, a tragic ending to her life, but someone who just has this beautiful golden voice. Kirsty Mccall. Incredible set. But this is Who Knows Where the Time Goes, and this is Sandy Denny, the great Sandy Denny. This is a Royco set of 3 discs. And this covers some of her work with Fairport Convention, as well as her solo records, mostly produced by the expatriate Joe Boyd, folk rock, balladeer, torch song singer. But what a beautiful voice. Of course, she wrote an amazing song, Who Knows Where the Time Goes. One of the most beautiful songs, folk songs, that became a folk pop song. Obviously, Judy Collins had the wonderful hit of it. But big fan here of Sandy Denny. This is a Royco Disc 3 CD set. Lovely, lovely set. Then we have the wonderful soul R&B singer, Etta James. Incredible singer. This is a lovely book put out by Geffen Chess, Hippo Select. Hippo Select was a kind of reissue label. It had put out a series of records from all these labels like Chess and Cadet, and the great, great Etta James, Heart and Soul, a retrospective, is again, one of my favorites. What's great about this series, some people will say, well, I don't like when these labels were putting out different formats and different size boxes, and where am I going to put these? Where am I going to store these? And I get that. I'm a fan of the design and the object of art in a way, and that might be superficial to some, but it's something that I really enjoy. I love, since we did shrink things down from LPs, and a lot of us missed the great design of LP records. When they took the design concept and ran with it, and labels like Capitol and Columbia Legacy and Warner's did these various kind of sets, Rhino exactly, it also did those. It's just a really wonderful addition. Of course, her music, Tell Mama, so many hits, incredible series of R&B singles, soul singles. Nina Simone, obviously worked on various labels, but first it is this. And this is For Women, the Nina Simone Phillips recordings. Verve and Phillips, some of her amazing early work. Again, another multi-fold series of art. Beautiful design again. But what it comes down to is just beautiful, beautiful music. And then, of course, the RCA years. Now, I first got into her for the RCA years. The Here Comes the Sun record that came out, I think, 72-ish, that has, obviously, the Beatle cover, has a Dylan cover. That's kind of a folk, soulful record, and it has the illustration of the sun on the cover. That material is on here. There's some unreleased songs here. But this is Sugar in My Bowl, 1967 to 1972. A fantastic set of one of my all-time favorite pianists and vocalists, soul, jazz, blues, folk, and she did it all really well. Passionate woman, political, interracial issues, and would really confront her audiences during her performances. So I think, obviously, one of the major talents, one of the most important female recording artists ever, and one of my favorites in my collection. I play her music regularly. What a great box set this is. Who would have thought that this woman, Bobby Gentry, had so much great music? Now, those of us who haven't really dived into her work definitely know the Ode to Billy Joe. Huge hit in 1967. I got that record for my bar mitzvah, that album, and I loved it. But she's got this sort of southern, gravelly, country soul voice and arrangements. And she was on Capitol Records. This pretty much has everything, all her records on here. And it's one of the most beautiful sets, anthologies I have. Bobby Gentry. It's got, obviously, these records. And a record that's become sort of a cult favorite and has expanded, the audience has really kind of finally got into it, is Delta Sweetie. That's the second record there. And that was her second record. Very southern soul country music, and a beautiful recording. This is how this is put together. But what's wonderful about this is this book too, with these great photographs, the story of each record, and this lovely woman who just finally, on her own, retired from the record business, from the music business, after making these incredible records. This, to me, it's like a diamond in the rough, where there was a lot of stuff in this record, in this set, that I hadn't heard, and I rediscovered, or I actually discovered for the first time. And what's great about this too is not only the great book, the great music, but the mastering of this. These recordings have never sounded as good as this. The great Bobby Gentry, the girl from Chickasaw County, a wonderful box set. And then lastly, a crossover artist, literally, Wendy Carlos. If you've never heard the name Wendy Carlos started out as Walter Carlos. She had a hit in 1968 called Switched on Bach. First time a synthesizer classical album came out, and it was, at the time, the biggest selling classical record ever. Of course, young people like me got into it because of the synthesizer, so it's almost had psychedelic overtones. It wasn't psychedelic, but it was Bach played on a Moog synthesizer. And Walter Carlos obviously later transitioned into Wendy Carlos. This is a wonderful set, and this is a very rare set. These go for a lot of money, and it's called Switched on Bach set, and it has Switched on Bach. It has a follow-up, the Well-Tempered Synthesizer, Switched on Bach 2, Switched on Bach Brandenburg, and that's the Brandenburg Concertos. And there's also, in a way, a tutorial where she goes through the whole idea and a tutorial of the Moog synthesizer, and gets a little technical, but it's still really kind of cool. It's got beautiful liner notes. It gets into the technical side of the Moog synthesizer, and how these things were developed, how she recorded with them, and how she, used this instrument. She was one of the early, promoters of the Moog synthesizer, and really crossed over and brought classical music and electronic music to a very wide audience. Of course, she would eventually, several years later, work on the soundtrack to A Clockwork Orange for Stanley Kubrick and several of his other films at the time. But this is really a special set as well. So Wendy Carlos, Walter Carlos, now Wendy Carlos, and switched on box set. So it's the great women of 20 women in the CD era, CD Anthology box set. Thanks for watching. I'd like to be turned on to other ones that I might have missed. Maybe I didn't pull, but enjoy. Thank you for watching. Mazzy loves you.